My name is Malcolm Wright. I oversee product management at Equicare Health. We've developed a software solution for cancer care coordination called Equicare CS. During this brief webinar, I'll provide an overview of the navigation features in Equicare. This is part of a series of webinars that demonstrate the various modules in Equicare. So if you want more info after watching this webinar, feel free to view them on this same website. So we're going to do a demonstration of the navigation functionality in Equicare. So I've switched over to my browser. Equicare is a web-based application, so it can run in any browser with internet access. I've logged into the system as Demo Nurse. You can tell who you are based on this item here in the menu bar. And when I log into the home page as a navigator, where I'm sent is to the My Alerts work list. And this is just a work list that gives you an overview of all the different activities that you're responsible for managing for your patients today on June the 18th in this case. So I can see, for example, that this patient has completed a distress assessment questionnaire using the portal. That's something I might want to follow up on. I can see this patient has a new radiology report that's come into the record. I might want to go and have a look at that. Or perhaps I've set myself a reminder to follow up on this patient, Gail, related to her imaging. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a patient that is new in the system. I'm going to pick Jean-Marie, and I'm going to go over to the navigation summary for this patient, and I'm going to walk you through some of the core features within our navigation screens. So one of the most important things that navigators want to be able to do is manage the barriers to care for the patients that are under their care. So we can satisfy that within Equicare using our problem module. And to do that, to initiate that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an add of a new set of problems for this patient. And when I click on add, what I see is an overview of all the different barriers to care or problems that are defined within our organization. So this is a template that ships with the product. You can shift what you want to include in this template, but coming out of the box, this is a base set on the NCCN distress causes. So I might want to go in and just identify that childcare and transportation are issues for this patient. She has some anxiety and depression, and maybe she's got some lymphedema issues. And I want to identify that there are no other problems identified for this patient. When I save all that, I come back to the navigation screen and I can see all those problems that have been identified. I can also see those categories where there were no problems identified. Now, if I actually want to go in and manage one of these individual problems, I can actually have some pretty good tools for doing that. So for example, I might want to go in with the patient's depression and identify that I should be following up with this in a couple of days. So I'm going to set a reminder for myself, and I can just put in a reason here, and that's going to show up on the alerts work list for me at the date that it becomes available. I'm also going to put in a note here related to this that's just not part of the patient's official chart. It's just some notes that I want to keep about the patient's depression. And perhaps I also want to keep a note of the fact that I spent 10 minutes working with this issue. And when I save that, I can see that I now have updated the patient's record with the reminder and with any notes that I've entered. Now let's say a few more days go by. I've got a reminder from the patient about this particular issue, and I want to phone the patient and just check in with them. One of the tasks I may have as a navigator is to record the encounter note with the patient. So we've made it very easy for you to do that within this workflow. I've opened up the depression issue. I can go in and record an encounter note. I can go and identify that this is a phone call or a face-to-face meeting. I can put my notes in here. Again, I can go in and record that I may have spent 10 minutes or maybe 20 minutes talking on the phone with the patient. And when I save that record, a couple of things are happening. One, we're putting a link here in the notepad identifying that this was an intervention related to the patient's depression. Secondly, I'm recording that encounter note in the patient's chart, and that now becomes part of their permanent record. And it's also something that we can push out to your oncology information system or your other EMR systems. Another thing that I can do from here is if I want to, I can initiate recording a referral directly from this screen. So coming out of that phone call, maybe I've identified that I really want to refer the patient in to a counselor. I can initiate that from here simply by adding a referral. I go in, I pick the type of referral I want to make. In this case, it's to counseling. I identify that it's me making the referral, and I get a short list of all the counselors that are commonly referred to within our organization. So I want to refer this patient to John Grisham. I might identify that John works out of network, and I'm referring there because we don't actually have this sort of a service within our organization. That's an option within the product. When I save that, again, I'm doing three things. I'm saving that referral as part of the patient's permanent record. I'm also saving that as a link here within the notepad. So I know that that was an intervention related to this particular issue. And the third thing I'm doing is I'm adding that service provider, John Grisham, to this patient's care team. And if John is also an Equicare user, he will now have access to Jean-Marie's record in Equicare. Let's save that record, and now you can get a sense of what we can do related to this notepad. I can see all the different notes that I've made, all the different interventions related to this patient's depression. I'm going to switch gears here, and I'm going to pick a patient who's a little farther along in their treatment, and I'll show you what this looks like for that sort of a patient. You can see that, again, I've got a lot of problems identified, but in this case, I actually get an overview of all the different types of interventions that I've made. And you can see I've recorded encounter notes, I've recorded appointments, I've recorded referrals, etc. It's a great way for an entire care team to come up to speed related to a patient. If you've got your navigators and your social workers and your nutritionists all collaborating in and around this patient's problem management, this is a great way for that team to understand what each other's doing and come up to speed related to a patient's issues. Another feature within the software relates to assessments. Now, what we've understood from talking with a lot of navigators is they have a lot of different responsibilities relating to assessing the patient's distress on a recurring basis, or doing things like recording the recommendations coming out of tumor board meetings. So what we've done with the software is we've added a module that allows us to define the sort of assessments that you want to do and make them available within this management screen. So for example, if you're responsible for assessing distress, we can add distress scale assessments directly in here and give you access to that sort of an assessment tool. You can pick the sort of template you want. I'm going to pick the distress scale assessment, and I can just very quickly go in and identify where the patient is regarding their distress, and I can identify that I want to follow up with this at a later date. And when I save that distress assessment now becomes part of the patient's record, and I can go and review over time how the patient is progressing with their distress, so I can see the sort of progress they're making. That's a very simplistic sort of example. We've got more sophisticated sorts of assessments in the software as well. So if you, for example, want to record the recommendations coming out of tumor board, we can create an assessment for that as well. Obviously, this is a much more sophisticated sort of a tool, giving you all the sort of drop downs that you want to include in your tumor board worksheet. Similarly, you might have a treatment milestones sort of a assessment where you want to be recording the primary milestones within a patient's progress as they go from diagnosis to initial treatment, etc., and identify the sorts of timeframes between each of those milestones. Again, this is very powerful for an individual patient basis, but when you look at it for an entire patient population, you can start to discern some of the patterns within your organization. Another feature within the software is to be able to go and record the amount of time that you're spending with the patient. You've probably noticed as I've gone into some of these screens, I've been keeping a track of the minutes I've spent on referrals and phone calls and so forth. We collect all that information on an individual patient basis, and we summarize it right here, the work time. And we also allow you to break that down by the individual types of tasks. So I can see I've spent 3 hours working with Gail, and I can see how that time breaks down by problems, by referrals, etc. Again, this is powerful on an individual patient basis, but it's really powerful once you start to look at things for an entire patient population. So that's a brief overview of some of the navigation functions within Equicare. So throughout this webinar, we've referenced a few times how the information captured within the navigation module is powerful when you look at it for an entire patient population. So let's go look at our reporting module now. I'm going to click on reports and show you one of these reports as an example. You've got a number of different patient reports in the system as well as operational reports. I'm going to select the problem details report, And when I run this, what it's going to show me is all the different problems that were recorded within the system in the month of January. So all of our reports are driven or extracted using Microsoft Excel. So the beauty of that is you can then go in using just standard Excel tools and use the formatting and filtering capabilities. So for example, with this report, what I'm looking at is all the different problems that were recorded. And if I want to just drill down a little bit and look at only the cognitive and depression issues, I can go and do that. And the software will automatically go in and filter that. I can also go and see how much time I've spent with various items. I can see details about who recorded items, when they recorded it, etc. I can also go and look at all the different interventions that were made related to a specific issue. So each of our reports is generated the same way, and it's a powerful feature for you to gain an understanding of all the different activities within your facility. So that's an overview of our navigation functions. If you want to see more about this, come and check out some of our other webinars in the series. That was a brief demo on just some of our navigation features in Equicare. If you want more info, feel free to visit our website or send us an email or give us a call. Also, feel free to watch the other webinars in this series, also available from this same website.